We can think about the magical 100 years of Athens, where democracy and philosophy and physics and so much of our culture was invented. They're one of the richest times. It was a time where, for the first time, defense was very powerful, but it required a high degree of social cohesion and discipline because of the structure of the phalanx, and required the participation of effectively all of society, and for everyone to be wealthy enough and to be politically engaged enough to want to participate in a phalanx. And so that created a very magical moment in time because of the structure of power that came with the phalanx. Later, if you look at feudal period, once again, feudal period was a period where defense had particular power. Castles and moats and citadels were almost unassailable. And so this led to power devolving to very, very localized areas. Basically, power devolved to wherever the nearest castle was. However, this time, it wasn't dependent on the participation of everyone, because power came from an expensive structure, the castle, and ironclad men and horses, which was extremely expensive, and so it created the elite and nobility. And so that shaped the structure of all of Europe for 1,000 years. And so if you look at you take this further, you look at gunpowder. Gunpowder made feudalism impossible because it once again changed the logic of violence in two ways. You now needed large numbers of people because guns were very, very cheap, easy to use. You could scale armies very, very well, and you needed to because the initial guns were very, very slow to fire. And at the same time, offense became much more powerful. Until trench warfare in World War I, there was almost no advantage to defensive posture. And so you had, Napoleon. You had the creation of nationalism in Prussia in order to defend against potential threats of massed armies. You need to have a massed army of yourself. And so the government started indoctrinating people with public education and creating a social welfare system in order to have a bargaining chip with which to bring people into national armies. And so the entire narrative of history is these massive structural changes based on the structural change of the calculus of violence and power. And so if you look at Bitcoin, what it does is it creates the most powerful defense in terms of defensive asymmetry that's ever existed, right? So any individual can have the ability to control Bitcoin in a way which is defensible even against the greatest nation state. It encourages anonymity. It reduces the value of borders, enhances the value of digital activity. And so you start thinking about the world and what it will look like given those and a few other changes, and the shape of tomorrow starts to take shape.